Do you want to do more to make impact? How we serve others and our world is how we pay our rent for being here. So get ready to learn how you can make a difference by simply choosing to live and lead with a socially conscious mindset. In this episode of Passion for Impact, I'm speaking with Linda Edgecombe, an award-winning celebrity humorist speaker, trainer, and consultant, and an incredibly inspiring impact maker. We're talking today sales, stories, and truths. How to weave impact into your business, organization, and of course, with your people. Ready to be inspired into taking action to make sustainable impact? Ready to challenge how you live your everyday? Are you ready to laugh? Because we're going to. Let's do it.
This is the Passion for Impact podcast with speaker, trainer, and socially conscious advocate Tricia Miltimore.
Thank you for joining in. This is the Passion for Impact podcast, where we have one clear goal: to educate, empower, and elevate social consciousness in people, business, and teams. Be sure to subscribe to receive links to featured companies, people, and offers. To subscribe, visit passionigniter.ca/podcast. Sales, stories, and truths. Developing a platform to make impact doesn't just happen without effort. It takes deliberate work to weave change, to nurture socially conscious intentions, and to engage empowered mindsets into your organization and your team. My guest today is an expert in the arena of impact. In so many ways, she's an expert in this. Linda Edgecombe is an award-winning celebrity humor speaker, trainer, and consultant. For the past 28 years, Linda's footprint is seen and experienced around the world. Her mission is to get people fired up and ready to shift or get off the pot. The 60 top motivational speakers in the world list includes Linda Edgecombe. Her non-BS approach is refreshing, engaging, and relevant. I've seen it in action, and it absolutely is. Linda's latest book and TED Talk, Breaking Busy, Finding Peace in the Chaos, is a game changer for those who want to step off the treadmill. Change has never been this painless. She energizes every room as she leads people to loosen up, lighten the load, and laugh. Linda has been featured in the Wall Street Journal as an expert in shifting perspectives. Her messages are as welcome as a deep belly laugh and as profound as an honest look in the mirror. Sounds kind of scary. Welcome, Linda, to the
show. Yeah. Well, that's, short of walking on water. What else could you say about me? And introductions, as we all know, are very, we write them ourselves. They sound like they're written in third person. And everything on that intro is truth. But that is literally the highlight reel. That's all it is. That's the highlight reel. There's so much low light and some mid light. But anyway, so that is a, by the way, Trish, you're an extremely good enunciator. Your language and pace and diction is
well, thank
amazing.
you, Linda. That's very nice of you.
No, it is. It's nice.
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, I know that the bios are always the highlight reel, but over many years now, I have watched you in action at conferences, different events, and, not to sound ingratiating, but you are absolute everything that bio says. And why I'm so excited to have you on this podcast, well, for many reasons, it's going to be fun and you have, great tips and mindset shifts and stuff. But you extend your expertise in empowerment, not only like corporately, but you've extended that into your own life experiences and the impact that you're making, which I can't wait to get into with Her International. We'll get into that in just a little bit. But it's truly like you're just an inspirational ball walking around that speaks the truth and shows people how it can be done. And that's what I want to help audience members, listeners to really tap into, is that any kind of business, service businesses as well, speaking is like a service, can actually incorporate impact in different ways. So that's why I'm so excited to have you here today.
It's great to be here because, it's, as we all know, in this crazy last, 10 months of our lives, almost coming up on a year, when our businesses, evaporated into the ether, and we had to start to think about first of all, it took me until literally mid-August to get my head out of my arse and put the wine glass down and say, okay, really, what do you want to do here, kid? Because there's no meetings happening in the next who knows, maybe a year. And yeah, so it's, I did my first experience of podcasting in the summer, albeit I did my podcast on wineries in the Okanagan where we both live. And how I got paid was in exchange for promoting each of the wineries, they paid me in wine. So it was the best flipping summer job, honest to God. I had so much fun. It engaged me. It made me get creative, and my soul was lacking so much, and just something different, right? To push a skill set, push this button versus that button, and engage people. And I love wine, but I love conversations.
Yeah, and it's kind of a common thread, I would imagine, throughout your life, is that engaging people in conversation, right? And people to think differently.
Oh, absolutely. There's a line in Jerry Maguire, I am too old for bullshit at this point in my life. And so I like getting to the backstory really, really fast. We can talk. I mean, we're just talking lightly right now, but I love the backstory of people. And so whenever I meet someone new, let's say, I'm one of those people that when you go for massage, I talk the whole time. And I come out knowing how many kids they have, who they're currently sleeping with, what their hobbies are, all those things. And they're going, I cannot believe you. I go, if you ask a good question, you tend to get a good answer.
Ooh, I'm trying to think of some good questions that is going to be so intriguing that, for the podcast right now, where can I go with this?
People will say, I never tell people that. I don't know what it is. You just open them up, get to the real stuff. And that's where the fun conversations
and
are.
And the genuine human connection too, which I think so many of us are missing right now, is that just genuineness and humanness.
Yeah. I really believe that, the whole coronavirus COVID experience has pushed us to be okay with not being okay. It's allowed us to admit that, I don't really have it going on right now. And we're more forgiving and less judgmental because ourselves are not doing okay all the time either. And I think if that's the only gift we get of this, like that makes us a lot kinder to each other. That has been my sort of experience. And people want, as they say, it's Let's Talk About It week. People are okay to talk about it more when we're in tough spots. Yeah. And anyway,
I love that. Yeah. Okay being not okay. And on the other
it's okay.
Yeah, I think on the other side of that too, and maybe you can offer some ideas on this too, is that people are almost okay with changing trajectory, where they're so stuck in what they were doing before, or they really really invested in their businesses or goals or whatever it was that they got going on, their job, but suddenly things were changing for people. So it almost kind of created an environment where like, oh, I can look at something different. Some of us were forced to.
Oh, totally forced to. I think all of us are forced into a change. So whether you embraced it before, you probably just opened your arms up a bit wider. If you had not embraced change before, if you really dug your heels in, this was the big brick wall for all of us. And we could either choose to not do well. Like I chose to not do well for a number of months, and I teach this stuff. I write about this stuff, and when I wasn't doing what I've been talking about for almost flipping 30 years, I went, okay, even for those of us who are relatively motivated most of the time. And what I knew about like I say, I took my head out of my arse, but I was definitely floating down the river denial. And I'm not even sure of denial of what. I just thought life would switch back. And so when I finally said, okay, Linda, what are we going to do here? And for me, that took 4 or 5 months of pretty good depression, because I've worked with, I always say, I never say suffered with. I've worked with depression my entire adult life. So I knew I was there, and I knew I was there pretty early on. Because for a lot of people, and probably many people who listen to your podcast, for me, I'll just speak for myself. I lost my job, my career of 30 years. I've never not had a job since I was 14. I've always made my own money. I've never been with my husband 35 years. I've never asked my husband for money. So I lost my career, my income, and my identity. And it's the identity piece that really threw me for a loop, because I had so much ego and identity wrapped up in, I'm pretty good on stage. And I know intellectually I have a lot other things going on. I do some other things, I listen to that bio again. So I know that intellectually, but I really identified with that whole performance thing. Yeah. So I thought if I can work through this then I can talk about it, and then I can help other people work through it. That's really sort of, okay, I've been given this gift again. Let's work through it. And so that's sort of been my process or is it process? Doesn't matter, of the last, few months. And for me, turning to virtual presentations, which has been amazing. I mean, I just really thought there's no way I can talk to this little hole in my computer. Like, there's just no way. Oh yeah, I can. And I've figured out how to be effective and get people engaged. And so I love the fact that I had to definitely learn a new skill set. And I mean that for everybody, because we're all doing work differently. So
what was that point that allowed you to create the space to learn those new skills? Like what happened in your mind, or how did you get yourself inspired? And was it the podcast experience, the novelty, expanding your skills? Like, yeah.
Yeah, definitely had something to do with it. And I felt success with it. So, and I that feeling was familiar to me. So, I did probably 12 podcasts through the summer. People were just super open to talk. I mean, yes, we talked about wine, spirits, and beer and cider, but really that was just sort of the conduit or the liquid. You know why I did it? Before I go to bed at night, I usually watch a little bit of YouTube, and oh God, what's his name now? He's British. He's very funny. Not Corbyn, but the guy, he's got a talk show, and everybody he's a British guy. Okay, in the notes, I'll get Trisha the notes. You can look him up. And he always has, A-lister stars on it. And I saw him in an interview once, and they said, how do you get these people to say all this stuff? He goes, you put alcohol in front of people, they'll tell you anything. So I woke up in the morning and went, I got to do a podcast about wine and drink while we're interviewing people.
Brilliant.
So to answer your question, a long answer to the question, in doing it, for me, it's like, I'm not totally fearful where it makes me freeze, because I've had some successes when I've been totally petrified before. So I've walked into fears before, big performances, big competitions, big whatever, and just harnessed it and walked through the other end and felt some success with that. And I've also failed lots of crap too. But so I had that toolkit in my back pocket. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. And I felt success. I went, okay, that charged me up again. But truthfully, another indicator, what was the moment? And I've never owned a scale, so I've never stepped on a scale in like probably 25 years. But I mean, I just sort of, caught myself in the mirror one day and went, oh my God.
Damn COVID.
That's what I said. Put the wine glass down. When the coffee cup passes the torch to the wine cup, and that's, you're pushing 3:00 in the afternoon. Yeah, it's time. It's time. Oh,
I love that. Anyway. You describe yourself, or I always ask, tell me 5 words to describe yourself. And your answer was opinionated, fun, game for almost anything, and woman's advocate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me about, I want to know more about the game for almost anything part.
Oh, okay. So I've always been very competitive. I grew up like as a tomboy, and I always thought I can do anything a boy can do. I never, ever had the thought otherwise. So that's always sort of just been my MO, not my sisters. So I don't know why I got it, but maybe because I'm a middle child. And so I always, whatever I tried, I wanted to be good at it, or at least doing it. And then when I got into my teens, I wanted to be good at it and then impress the boys, which wasn't always, when you're beating them at arm wrestling at a grade 7 dance, it's probably not, that's not how you hook a guy, And so as I've gotten older, what I have noticed, I've gotten a little more fearful. And I noticed that when I turned 50.
Really?
Yeah, I know. And I'm fairly I can pride myself on being self-aware. So I was noticing, let's say Kevin is really game. My husband's really game to do stuff like, let's just get in the car. Like let's just get on a plane. We have no accommodations booked, and we'll find something when we get there. That's not so comfy for me anymore, but because my level of quality for a hotel room has definitely gone up over the years of being on the road. But I noticed it. We're in Mexico. We are staying in a very lovely place, a condo. And he says, let's rent a car and we'll just drive down to Tulum and we'll figure out. And my anxiety, I never had a panic attack before. I didn't, but I just knew physically something was up. And I went, what the heck? What am I scared of? And I realized I had, I lost a bit of that jam of who gives a rip where we sleep, or who, that kind of thing. And so I've had to push myself more often as I've aged. That's for sure. and people who listen to this will totally relate to this because I've surveyed lots of people on this topic. When you aren't in control of the outcome, that's what holds people back from doing any kind of change. That's the biggest fear. I'm not in control of the outcome. That's why people stay in shitty relationships. That's why they stay in crappy jobs, because they cannot predict what's on the other side of that fear. And so I always say, when it comes to change, like just start practicing those small stuff. Like just little things like if you go out for dinner, if you can, like we can in the Okanagan, if you go out for supper or dinner somewhere or lunch, instead of ordering, ask the waiter or waitress to just bring me something, just surprise me, and just see if you can handle it. Because believe me, they're going to ask you, do you have any food allergies and stuff? So you won't get something that's going to make you sick. But just be out of control of a couple of things. Don't press your clothes. Well, who's going into an office anymore? When's the last time you even had to flip an iron out? But anyways, don't press your clothes to the whatever level you like to. Like do it half.
Go out with a few
wrinkles here and there. Just right, because you're going to feel out of control. And it's that out of controlness that freaks people out, which keeps us exactly where we are, doing exactly what we are doing and loathing it most of the time. Right. But it does take practice, just like decision making. Most of us, if we've never practiced making decisions, what movie do you want to see? Oh, you pick. What would you like for dinner? I don't care. Whatever you think. When it comes to big decisions, which come down the pipe for all of us at some point, we have no clue how to make them. So we don't. We just hover. And that to me is probably, I know that you're the passion. Well, it's the truth. You're the passion igniter. We need to practice making decisions. We need to practice having difficult conversations. We need to practice being a bit out of control, not knowing what the outcome will be, and, learning how to fail. And that's all. Everybody says this, but that is the honest to goodness truth. And when you do that, you have a toolkit in your back pocket that you will come through the other end regardless. That's like, we know we'll come through the other end of this thing that we're in right now.
It's forcing us to get a little more comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's really fascinating to me that at 50, you started noticing yourself feel a little bit more, whatever, anxiety or fear. Because the hope for me was that, by 50,
I was going to say, F it. Well, here's the other thing. I joke because I turned 60 this summer, and I always say when I turn 50, I stop giving a rip. When I turn 60, I really don't give a rip what anybody thinks anymore, which can get me in trouble because it's, I walk to the edge of opinion and content. I've always have. That's sort of my MO, but I need to walk to the edge kind of, sort of, but I really don't care. I mean, if you hate what I'm saying, whatever. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. There's that piece. But even I'll give you another small example. So for years and years and years and years, my favorite sport was downhill skiing. I was a ski patrol. I raced in downhills. That's how I met boys. I was good at skiing. And I
was going to say, I do notice a pattern.
Yeah. And I haven't done a whole lot of skiing in the last few years. And I have a cabin at Big White. I have a season's pass. I've been up for half a day. That's all I've been up so far. So I'm thinking of going up on Saturday, and I feel anxiety about it. Now I know I can ski. It's, do I want to actually go outside? And I know I'm going to be a bit stiff because I'm not as strong in my legs as I used to. It's all unfounded BS. So it's in my head. My head's talking to myself, and I'm talking myself out of it. You know what I mean? That's just, I don't know the why. I just notice it. So, I'll go anyway, especially, if I can talk it, a couple girlfriends to go, I'll go. And I don't even mind if I go, but I ski I've always skied by myself anyway. And if you ski by yourself these days, you get a whole chair to yourself.
Right now. Yeah. Right.
Full on chair, 6-person chair, spread it out.
There's Linda on the chair with her bottle of wine and the fancy jacket that holds a glass or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I really am inspired with about the work that you do, you're a master professionally, like truly a master at what you do. I've never met someone or seen someone who has the skill set you do on stage. It's funny, but then it's instantaneously twisted around to being like incredibly insightful. So you're a master at that. You got that down. You're beautiful, right? Mm-hmm. But then there's a whole other aspect about you and the work you do beyond just being a professional speaker. and trainer that is with Her International. So if you wouldn't mind sharing, how did this like philanthropic work begin? And oh my gosh, and how did it grow to where it's at now?
It's yeah. There's definitely I love talking about it. So historically, I've always been a volunteeraholic.
Oh,
Okay, so
okay.
I mean, even professionally, when I worked for Edmonton Parks and Rec, my job was to coordinate and work with volunteers in the community to create the best community experience people could have in their communities. So I've always been a volunteer, and I've always worked with volunteers. I know how to recruit volunteers and give back. It's all about giving back, whatever the cause. And there's been many, many causes over the years, and so I built a skill set around that piece. So how it started, I had a group of girlfriends who used to, we're talking, so it's probably 15 plus, probably 20 years ago, group of girlfriends here in the Okanagan, all different independent business women, solopreneurs, all solopreneurs. We'd get together probably once every 6-7 weeks, basically to drink wine, eat popcorn. That's
Yeah.
it. And of course we gossip and catch up and what are you doing? And then every once in a while, because then we started noticing patterns, we're all telling the same story over and over and over. Whatever's bugging us, whatever's going on in our lives, the stories keep repeating themselves. And we're going, how come none of this shit ever changes? And so I went out to an event to speak in Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan Safety Council. Had to been 500 people in the audience, 3/4, if not more, men, because it was at the time, this is many years ago. And I said to them, I just challenged them verbally. I said, if you could do anything this next week that has nothing to do with your work, because I think I asked the question, if you're gifted 2 hours with nothing else to do, but you can't do anything that's work related, you're just gifted 2 hours, it's just given to you. What would you like to do with that time? And I said, just write it down. And then I challenged them and I said, okay, what I'd like you to do in the next, I think I gave him 3 days. And I don't know why I did this. This was not planned. I said, I'd like you to just act on whatever that is, whether it's hang out with your spouse, your kids, move your body, you got a hobby, I don't know what it is, sleep, read, and I need you to email me. And even if you don't do it, just email me and say, I didn't do anything. Just because I wanted them to have a teeny piece of an accountability piece, but I didn't even know that's what it was at the time. Okay, this is how I don't know, maybe something's just feeding through me. Who knows? Out of the 500 people there, I think I got 350
Wow.
emails. Yeah. And so I knew right then that definitely hit a chord. And I went, okay, there's something here. And I wasn't quite sure what even that was yet. So I started asking that question every time I would speak. And depending on the group, so if it was people in sales, let's say, I'd get an 85% return rate of the number of people who would email me back with what they did or didn't do. And so then I went back to my ladies. I said, we need to put an accountability piece into this little group we're doing. So then we started meeting once a month. We'd say, and because again, we're all solopreneurs. What's something you want to accomplish this month? And it could be little, it could be big, whatever. And every week we just email each other with an update. So we met once a month. We emailed each other with an update. So out of that, over a year. So of course I wrote something. I wrote a book on it.
Of course you did.
called Guilt-Free Accountability. But through the process of that year with these ladies, one of those ladies was Michelle Bonneau, who is the founder of IWEN, IWEN, International Women's Education Network, which now has been renamed to Her International. And at the time, she just said, okay, she will tell this she said this in public, so I'm just going to say it. She said, okay, I was sitting, and she's a retired nun, which makes it everything about her hilarious. Because she swears, I swear a lot. I've already sworn 3 times, I think, in this interview, and she swears like a lot. She says, I was sitting on the toilet last night, and I thought to myself, what if I sold my condo, and I went back to Nepal, and I got to do something about these girls. Because girls in Nepal, we're talking now again 20 years ago, girls in Nepal and lots of developing countries were being sold for labor, sex trade, slavery, whatever. And girls young, 6 to 10, 11, 12. If they were 12 and they were still at home, they'd probably get arranged marriage. So they'd go off to be the boys. And the reason that this happens, by the way, if you're having judgment, just notice if you're having judgment coming up about what I'm saying, is culturally driven and poverty driven. And people, just culture and poverty, no education. So, and girls in the culture go to work so that their brothers can go to school. So she says, I think I'm going to go back to Nepal. So she had a flipping condo on Lakeshore, Lakeview. You don't even want to know what she sold it for. Not much. Went back to Nepal, and she sent me an email. She says, Linda, she goes, you're in front of people all the time. She goes, what if I send you some scarves from Nepal and you take them and maybe we can raise $200, $300, $400? And I said, okay. So she sent me a small bag. It wasn't very big at all. And I took them off to an event. There was probably a little bit of jewelry in it, scarves. And I mean, I didn't even have a story yet, other than I said, what we're doing is we're trying to rescue girls, blah, blah, blah. I sold every scarf, of course. And how I usually tell the story on stage, I go, and fast forward, that the 15 years. So her and I, then we formalized a committee, created a charity, and iWin just happened to be a charity that wasn't a registered charity with Canadian government yet. Just happened to be a charity that she had on the shelf, International Women's Education Network. And people always say, what's iWin mean? Because it was a really weird, whatever, mouthful. We got charitable status really easily. Again, maybe because she's a nun and she had a fast track to God, who knows? And away we went. And 15 years later, and I'm telling you, hundreds of thousands of scarves later, and thousands and thousands. Like, if I had the numbers, I never thought to bring them so I could read them to you, of the thousands and thousands of girls, which has affected thousands and thousands of families, and also thousands and thousands of their mothers, because the mothers themselves said, well, we want to learn a little bit of literacy and numeracy skills. So then we started teaching. Well, we didn't. We sort of set the groundwork. We didn't even fund the mothers. They funded themselves. Every time that these mothers groups would come together, and we have like 13 of them now. So there's probably 1,500 mothers just in this small little area in the Dang region of Nepal who would meet, probably weekly. And they'd always all put in maybe 2 rupees, 3 rupees. That's like 4 cents Canadian when they come. So they've raised so much money in each of their little microcredit groups. They created their own bank.
Wow.
Oh yeah. So now instead of them having to go to a landlord because they didn't know, they couldn't read. They are a caste system, so they were really low. They were one of the lowest caste, maybe the second lowest caste, and they just work with each other. They support each other. We're teaching them a little bit of literacy, numbers, so they can figure out what their budgets are in their families, what they need, and they've started their own little businesses, whether someone's raising goats, someone's raising pigs, someone starts a little tea house or noodle house. Some of our mothers are sewing, of course, all of our stuff. All I did all afternoon today is packaged up masks. I'm selling masks now. I'm not the scarf lady anymore. I'm a mask. I'm a mask lady. And there's way less domestic violence. And of course the girls are still going through school because we keep putting them into schools, and we've had to build. And how it grew and grew and grew is the best thing I've done for the planet is take my husband with me to Nepal the first time I went, because the princess who loves a good West Inn hotel, didn't think I could handle it because I'd never been, and I'd never really been to. Well, I always say Mexico doesn't count because when I'm in Mexico, I'm at it all inclusive, And so I brought Kevin with me because I didn't think I could handle it. And he was just all excited. He goes, great, we're going to do Everest, which we did as well. But as soon as he got there, he went, oh my God, he goes, I'm a builder. We got to get some better classrooms for these girls because we were overcrowding the schools at the time.
Wow.
And so Kevin got involved. And when Kevin took over the reins, so I still fundraise, but he became the chair. The president has been, he just actually stepped down in October. He's been the chair for, I don't know how many years. And he's connected. He's a developer builder in the Okanagan, and he's got a lot of contacts. So our reach got bigger, and he's very organized. And so that kind of skill set. Then we got better. We just got really dynamic, beautiful people on our board who've got big hearts and work ethic. And because we are a working board, we finally hired a bookkeeper. This is a number of years ago now, so just keep us on track and keep everything great. And 2-3 years ago, that's when we changed the name to Her International. We hired 2, again, dynamo, just brilliant, articulate women as our co-executive directors for the charity, part-time. They make it just a smidgen of a salary. And of course, after this year, everybody got laid off. But, we've still had some pretty amazing, fundraisers. I still have clients. I had clients that just before Christmas order every piece of fabric I had in the house. So, yeah. I say way back when, if I would have known then what it's become today, if someone said, okay, this is what you're going to do, and we're going to do this, I would have said, oh, there's no way. And not that I don't want to do the work, because I do lots of that. Again, in my brain, I think, I don't know if I can handle it. And, if you do any sort of research and reading around fear, the Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Susan Jeffries, she says the biggest fear that all of us have is not snakes or death or whatever it is. She goes, it's literally the biggest fear is, will I be able to handle it? And the crazy thing is that we all handle everything. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. We handle everything that's dealt. And to think that that's our biggest, that's why we don't move on stuff, because we think, will I be able to handle the other side of this? Yeah, we will. So that's how it's grown and exploded. We've gotten some pretty, significant sponsors and donors now, some, movers and shakers in our community. We've expanded into Canada. We're doing our last fundraiser. We split between, and it was the biggest fundraiser we've ever had, did an online fundraiser, did a virtual fundraiser, and raised money for, Nepal, homeless shelter in the Okanagan, homeless shelter in Alberta. And people go, why Edmonton? Because that's where Kevin and I are from. So we chose a women's shelter. And because our mandate is women and children. And what's the coolest thing about the whole thing, like that happened a year and a half ago, is that we've been fundraising for my entire life as a fundraiser. And the ladies, the mothers groups in Nepal said, well, we should do something for the Into the Night group in Kelowna. So they did a fundraiser in their mothers groups, and of them all putting, whatever they could afford, rupees into a suitcase, literally, and raised, I think it was $180.
Wow.
But for them, that is massive. That is massive, massive. And they wrote a check, and we delivered the check to the group. So we didn't instigate that. We didn't drive that. We didn't ask for it. The mothers groups just came together and said, we'd like to give back to the women in Canada.
No, care is contagious. It's a powerful thing.
Care is contagious. Oh. Yes. Isn't that true? Yeah.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool.
It's so cool. And I love that. I remember reading a quote from Sir Richard Branson. And he said that something to the effect of, I can't remember exactly, that if they would have imagined or tried to strategize for what Virgin is today, it never would have happened. So, right. So you kind of prepare for what is just in front of you, and then you can't cross a bridge till you get to it, kind of thing. For people listening, a lot of the listeners are, in HR departments trying to integrate a sense of social consciousness into their organization, or it's a business owner thinking, how can I give back more? It's not just about profits. And you're living that and you're doing it. What advice would you give to that HR person, learning development person, or that business owner? Like what are the simple pieces of advice?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So if I was an HR person, I would just put a couple questions out to the team. So if you're going to put time and energy into stuff, if tell us employers are going to put some time and energy, they want to do something that they have some passion around. And they're a big group. So if you're an individual, you want to ask yourself two things. What do you absolutely love? Like what just totally charges you up? And what do you absolutely angst? As Beth will say, if you remember Popeye and a cartoon from the 60s, and he'd say, Popeye, I don't know if I know you're way younger than me, Tricia.
I remember something about Popeye.
Popeye. So Popeye would go, I can't stand it no more. It's something that totally pisses you off. Like angst is just, it's like your forehead on a cheese grater, right? Makes you angry. And somewhere between those two is, as I call it choosing a slice of the planet, is a slice that you'll have some passion for. And because if you're going to give back, it takes some energy. There's no question. So if that piece of yourself, and I believe it's actually fundamental for us to be totally alive. I think all of us, because if you are like me, we're living gifted. Not everybody on the planet is, but we're living a very gifted life, very blessed. Even with problems, we're living a blessed life. If you want to get out of a funk, you go do something for someone else with no expectation that they ever have to pay you back. But that's got to be something. If you're going to put the energy into it, it's got to be something that you've got some passion around. I mean, you're the passion lady, so you love it. So for me, I've always been a huge women and girls fan. Support. It's just it's in my DNA. Started very young for me. I know the exact moment that it started. And so it is so ingrained in me that to help women, as Gloria Steinem would say, the truth will set you free, but first it's going to piss you off. I literally have that book sitting right in front of me right now. My girlfriend found it in a used bookstore. I've definitely been a Gloria Steinem feminist my entire life. And, just when we thought we were doing great, not so great, like we're still, anyway, there's so much there that angsts me and also that I love. So when those things lined up for me, it was pretty easy. And I think it's really important for whether you're in a big corporation, whether you're an HR person, or whether you're a solopreneur, entrepreneur, your customers, clients expect you to do something. It's not the exception. It is the norm. And it's okay to be profitable and be philanthropic. There's no guilt at all. It's a beautiful marriage. Everybody benefits. So you got to know that, because the reason so many not-for-profits, I'm going, come on. You can, capitalism works just fine within the philanthropic world. It's okay to be successful and give back. You don't have to wait till you're successful to give back. You give back in time. But it's a win-win. I'm not embarrassed at all that, hey, yes, I do all this, but it's also a big part of what I talk about. So it's a big part of my story, because life is about stories. Those are the best stories in the end, are the ones that win.
And the ones that make impact.
Yeah. Back to the impact thing. And but that there's not a person who's been in an audience of mine in 30 years who's ever remembered the 12 steps to managing stress. I've had people come back to me, they saw me 20 flipping some years ago, and tell me a story I told. And I remember they'd repeat it. I've told that so many times. Like Alvin Law once said, if you tell a good story and then the person who saw you tell the story tells that story, whose story does it become? Because the story goes on, right? Yeah. And with probably embellishments, but it doesn't matter. People remember story. And if you've got some great stories, if you've done some cool things, you got to tell that story. And if you're doing cool things that make the world a better place to be, as a business owner, an entrepreneur, or an HR person, you best be using that as part of your marketing. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. If it's a win-win, they win, you win. If you're doing it just for that, well, then you're not doing it with the right headspace or heart space. But that's a beautiful relationship, I believe. Because there's lots of slices of the planet that need to be chosen.
Right. I love that idea that it has to, you're passionate about it, but there has to be some kind of angst, that you have some kind of feeling of energy to fix something, to make a difference, because it just irks your soul in such a way.
Yeah. There's lots of things that make us, whether it's environmental, whatever your thing is. And and it can be all of those, but just, choose something you're willing to put some energy into, because you need energy if you're going to do, and BTW, we've always said, well, you can't change the world. Actually, no, you can change a slice of the world. Like the slice of the world we chose, which is this, little swath of community in southwestern Nepal, is changed culturally. Everybody says, it's really tough to change culture. Well, it can be done. It's wild to think that culturally they have, then the men started saying, well, we'd like to learn how to read and write. So anyway, at one point we had to do a more holistic approach to what we were doing.
Change the messaging a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And I think too, people don't recognize that it doesn't have to be huge. It can be 1% of your sales that you donate to something that matters to, or selling the scarves that you were there anyways, and you had the scarf.
Yes.
So this is for anyone listening, and you want to integrate impact into your business platform. It doesn't have to be difficult.
No, it doesn't. And I always say, you do not have to do what we've done, not even close. So for me, selling a scarf is a touchstone thing. And people are very inspired by learning about other cultures. They really are, especially, if you're at an event and I tell the story. I always rate how well I do by how many scarves are left on the table. Mm. Like, it's not whether I get a standing ovation or, yes, I love when people clap or they laugh. That's beautiful. But if I've got no scarves left on the table, I go, that was a good one. That's literally how I rate how well I did.
Wow.
And people go, they'll tell me, I still have my scarf. I love that scarf. And they think about girls, they think about it when they wear it. So it's a touch point that their $20, which makes a huge difference, is just one way that they got to give back. So it's a really interesting exchange.
Feels good too. So you're for many, many years on stage, off stage, sharing wisdom, tips, strategies, all kinds of humor and wonderment and magic. What is the best advice you have ever received? Put you on the spot on this
one. Whoa, I wish I would have had this ahead of time. I could have really thought this through. Let me think. Big influencers. Advice. I can definitely talk about influence. One of my profs at university, when I was in, they don't call it the faculty of phys ed anymore. They call it kinesiology or sport, and I don't even know what they call it anymore. Anyways, I was in the faculty of phys ed, and I was listening to a prof second year, Ted Wall, Dr. Ted Wall was his name. And he was talking about people with disabilities and because part of my degree, well, what I actually have is an adaptive phys ed degree, which means I was working with people with physical disabilities and helping them with their mobility. And that was that was the trajectory I got on. But he inspired me so much that he literally changed what I thought I wanted to do. I just loved how compassionate he was, and inspired by people, the ability to, because at the time we're talking late 70s, early 80s, where nothing was accessible. It wasn't even a word yet, accessibility. Maybe it just started to be, and to give people access to whatever experiences they wanted, regardless of their abilities. And so he definitely took me on a trajectory that changed how I am as a person. Because at the time, again, I didn't know anything about people with disabilities, whether it was physical or mental disabilities. I just thought, oh, I wonder if I'll be okay about it. I mean, that's how naive and stupid my thinking was. What I realized about myself is that I didn't even see that in them. And that was obvious to me. Anyways, full circle, 2 years ago, I'm speaking at McGill to faculty, profs and admin, and he's in the audience. And I don't realize it until maybe 3/4 of the way through my presentation. And I literally started bawling. I went, he didn't even know what to do with me. Because I'm talking, it's been 38 years since I've been in university.
You recognized him.
Yeah, well, I think I must have said, I went to U of A from Edmonton, and because I also how I got into speaking is I worked for Participation. So the process was I worked for the City of Edmonton, actually get this, as their fitness advisor.
You laugh.
Back when I was teaching aerobics and you wore slouch socks, and Jane Fonda, high-waisted Jane Fonda. Oh yeah, I was totally karma chameleon. I was that aerobics instructor where you just stood in one spot, moved front and back. Anyways, bad. And went from working for the city for a number of years to eventually becoming a consultant with Participation. So I must have said something about that while I was in the audience. And he goes, where'd you go to school? I said, U of A. He goes, I used to teach. I looked at his name tag. I went, and I literally lost my shit. Like I just have never viscerally felt that about someone who completely influenced me. But it's probably not the answer you wanted.
I think it's a beautiful answer, because often it's not necessarily an actual statement of wisdom, but it's like this overall influence. And it's usually from a person in our life that they don't even know they had that impact. Maybe something was said right?
It's often teachers. They never know that they've had impact. And they never know that lots of times, especially educators, whether they're whatever age, even university, that they save people's lives with just a few kind words, and they don't even realize it unless someone comes back and tells them. Like I've done some research around that, so I know that to be a fact. Educators hardly ever get that kind of feedback. But I will say one thing about somebody in our world, in the speaker world, a lady by the name of Patricia, who's in Calgary, and she's just, I actually called her my second mom. But so I got to know her, and she, as a speaker, and her and I were at a couple of women's events together, and she came and saw me once in Calgary. So this is probably, I've been at it 10 years, and I think I'm all that in a bag of chips. I think I am just hot shit. And you know where that gets you, right? When your ego is, just ridiculous. Anyway, so I'm pushing the envelope. I mean, big time. And I love shock factor. I did at the time. And she came up and talked to me after. She says, "Oh," and people were laughing, but you could tell there's probably more than a handful cringing. I don't mind if one person cringes, but if I got, anyway. And this is her advice. She says, "Linda," she goes, "that was really good." She goes, "But you know what?" She goes, "I really don't think you need to push that hard." She says, "Because it's still very, 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 very funny without, you're a little bit over the edge." I don't know. So she said it's something like that. And that has totally stuck with me. And from then on in, I just sort of walk to the edge versus going over the edge. And when I say edge, you know what I mean by edge,
I'm
right?
wondering how you know when you hit the edge.
I can see it in people's faces, but I always know I pushed the edge on somebody, maybe 3 people. But so swearing would be one of them, which I have said shit, or I've mouthed the word F. I've not ever said it, but I've mouthed the word, like lip sync, so to speak. If I've said something, I learned this from Amanda Gore out of Australia. She is teaching us how to de-escalate a room if you know you've pushed buttons. And now I de-escalate by saying, "By the way, I'm going to push your buttons." So I tell them beforehand. And if I do, this is how I set it up, I want you to notice that. Don't just respond to it, but notice it. So instead of going to judgment, which all of us do this very easily, go to curiosity instead. You can still be mad at me, but just go to curiosity and go, why did that just push my buttons? So I set myself up. I call myself on it first. I explain what's going to happen. And then sometimes if I've done it and I can see it in their eyes, I want them to know that I noticed that they're offended. So I say, I can see by the look of some of your eyes, and you're thinking, "Oh, that's a bit much." So if I do that, it also allows them to hear the rest of it. So it's just like if the room is stinking hot, you as a person in front of the room says, "Oh my gosh, it's really hot in here," but they're going to change it. People calm down versus thinking they're going, "Oh my God, it's hot, it's hot, it's hot." They can't get their head back in the room. So I want to get their heads back in the room. So that's just a skill set that it works. So for those of you who are giving presentations, call yourself on stuff if you've messed up.
I feel like everyone listening right now wants to go to YouTube and watch your videos. Let me get a real sense of what she's talking about, right?
Oh, yeah. Or, one of the things I love to do, I love walking in, like, this is what I really miss. I love walking into an audience because I want them to feel the change of energy. Like you can viscerally feel it. So I walk into the audience and if I'm walking up to someone and that person, generally a guy, once in a while it's a woman, but generally it's a guy, and he's looking down because the last place he wants to be is in that audience that day. And I go, "Oh, I can see you're thinking, back off, sister." Okay. So if I say that, it just takes that energy right away. And so there's lots of little tips and tricks you can do to be in the room with people as they can see you. Oh God. Anyways, I've definitely got myself in trouble. I remember calling some guys, he had a goatee. And I was describing personalities. Oh, you probably have to edit this. Anyways, I was describing personalities going around the room. And it was City of Calgary. They were probably in the utilities department or something. And I said, "And all you guys with these, what is this, goat's ass?" I called it goat's ass. Yeah, I got in big trouble.
Who did you get in trouble by, out of curiosity? Was it the...
Oh, one of the guys. He was quite offended. Okay.
As long as the client's not offended. I know. Then you're okay.
Yeah, but and I probably get not anymore, but used to get maybe one good, solid, really nasty email a year. And then I just sit there and I look at it and I say, how do I want to respond? Because I really want to annihilate the person, but I just go, okay, I got to really think this through. How do I want to respond to this?
I always think that when I get nasty messages or emails, my first thought is, right on, I got some new keynote material.
Yeah,
perfect. Wow. Well, you are certainly a master at communication, at engagement. When you walk into a room, you bring your energy, which is so infectious, but also real practical shifts. And I think that's obviously why you're so successful. And then to be able to actually weave impact into everything you're doing personally and professionally, it's very inspiring. This is why I wanted to have you on the show. So for anyone who's listening, I know they probably want to watch your videos, listen to you talk now. For them to get a hold of you, they can go to lindaedgecombe.com. And I do, you have a channel and everything like that, right? Lots of material there. And you also have,
My dad would
what's
say, my dad would say I have more shit than Shinola. Yeah.
and you have a free book for anyone listening as well.
Yes.
So how would they?
So Breaking Busy, I have as an ebook. And if you just go to my site, lindaedgecombe.com, it'll ask you, do you want to download? And it comes in whatever format. You can choose which format you like best for your e-readers or computer. You can get a PDF if you want it. And you can also, you'll also get with the book is 2 audits. One audit will be a personal audit, and it's perfect. Well, it's early in the year still, but maybe when you listen to this, it's middle of the year. There's an audit you can give yourself. You can survey yourself, say what parts of your life moving forward you want to maybe work on. Just choose one. Don't choose any more. Even if there's 3 that are not a very high score, just choose one. And there's also a workplace audit. And so maybe if you have a team, you might want to download it, print it, and have your team do the audit. And it's a great sort of launching pad for how do you want to be a team moving forward? What area of our workplace should we work on? It's just a great way to start a conversation around how we can be, more effective, healthier, more supportive, whatever needs to happen in your team. It'll come out in the wash.
Very cool. Okay, some great tools. Well, that's lindaedgecombe.com. Go and check it out. And thank you, Linda, for your time. Thanks for the laughs and getting off the couch and hanging out with me for a little bit tonight. I do appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Such an inspiring conversation. Listen, if you love learning how to live and lead in a conscious and fulfilling way, and you find this show empowering, please share with your friends, rate and review this podcast. Thank you for listening. Remember, cast your vote, make your impact one socially conscious choice at a time.
Passion for Impact is sponsored by the Inspire Store. Need a gift that inspires? Inspire Store features exclusive ethically made goods and jewelry that embodies these 3 words. Yes, you can. Every purchase supports Food Banks Canada. Plus, you will receive Tricia Miltimore's popular personal development Shift Up e-course. Empowerment awaits you. Shop with impact at inspirestore.org.
Thank you for listening to the Passion for Impact podcast. Visit passionigniter.ca/podcast to subscribe for episode notes, links, and special offers from show guests. Cast your vote. Make your impact one